Well, some surprising good news today about the economy. Official GDP figures showing it grew by 1.6% in the third quarter. That's from the beginning of July to the end of September. That was also during an intense bout of load shedding. Tertia Jacobs is a Treasury economist at Investec. Tertia, good afternoon to you. I mean, this is really surprising. How did the economy grow when we were on load shedding stage 6?
Absolutely. Good afternoon, Stephen. Yes, we were all quite surprised when the number was printed. So there were a couple of big drivers, and I think that is where the upside surprise came from. Firstly, agricultural production. We actually expected to contract, but there was a huge upward revision. And then exports actually did surprisingly well. And we think that was mainly coal exports, which continued to flow outside the country, notwithstanding the challenges.
The sector you referred to, agriculture, forestry and fishing, up 19% in the third quarter.
Yes.
I mean, that's a massive increase. And when I see an increase that is that big, that is that surprising, I worry that someone's going to have to go and look at the figures and suggest maybe it wasn't quite that big.
Yes, I hear you. So I think what happens is that on a quarterly basis, the Department of Agriculture provides these forecasts. And that's obviously a function of what happens to various harvests, like the maize harvests. So there was some kind of upward revision. So very interesting then to see how the fourth quarter is going to play out. Because, usually when we see such huge increases, base effects results in a fair, bit of moderation in the following quarter.
Manufacturing also an increase. And, agriculture does use electricity, sure, but manufacturing rarely needs electricity. That's almost more surprising.
No, I think that was expected because remember, the third quarter built on the second quarter, and then we had KwaZulu-Natal floods, right? And there was a lot of infrastructure destroyed that impacted exports. As some of the port activity was halted, there was problems with road transport. Some of the manufacturing facilities of some of our key manufacturers were affected. So in the third quarter, there was then a recovery from a very low base.
Okay, so what we're basically seeing then is we're getting a proper, more accurate picture of where our economy actually is. Some of what we had thought we knew sort of changes. That does happen sometimes. It's still overall, when you consider the environment, let me put it this way. When I think you consider the mood of the country at the moment, which is frankly not very cheerful, still, to get growth like this when people were worried about a recession is really surprising.
Yes, Stephen. So I think that shows you how important confidence is and to the extent that we can build up on this number. But I think when you look at some of the other, developments in the print, you would see that consumption spending actually contracted, right? And that is where the high inflation, the interest rate increases, the high unemployment rate feeds in. Then the second aspect was also what made a big contribution was inventory build-up. Now, that tends to be quite a volatile number from quarter to quarter, and I think what drove that increase was a build-up in inventory, especially in the trade sector, going into Black Friday sales in November. So some of those drivers can actually reverse going into the fourth quarter. But coming back to the household consumer spending side, that is where we will expect to continue to see weakness going into the first half of next year.
There are all sorts of comparisons with the period before COVID-19. We saw our economy shrinking quite dramatically during COVID-19, along with many economies around the world. Is our economy now the same size as it was before COVID-19? Is it possible to really know? There have been quite a few changes. Some people lost jobs, some people gained jobs they didn't have before.
So if we look at the GDP number, it shows that the economy is just more than a percentage point above the fourth quarter of 2019, right? So one can say, yes, the economy is back to pre-COVID levels. But, the devil is always in the detail. When you look at sectors like mining, manufacturing, many of the services sectors, and even on the spending side, like semi-durables, that's your clothing and footwear, it remains below quarter four 2019. So this recovery in growth has been very specific to some sectors. It's not a broad-based recovery.
Does it mean that our economy employs as many people as it did before the pandemic? And I mean, there's obviously the formal and the informal sectors to look at.
Absolutely. And we have seen the recent labor force survey. And I'm not going to give you the correct numbers now, but I think we're still short of about 650,000 jobs or so. So there has been a recovery in some sectors, like the government has actually employed more sectors. There has been a bit of a pickup in some of the trade sectors, some of manufacturing. But the recovery has been very slow.
Tertia Jacobs, thank you. Treasury economist at Investec. Really do appreciate the time and